My ex-girlfriend stole my security credentials to impress her new guy, and in the end she managed to wreck her own life without any help from me. Sup, Reddit. I work at one of the busiest ports in the country, and somehow my ex decided to speedrun a criminal record just to impress some dude with a YouTube channel. I'm Jared, 26, male. Here's what happened. They don't pull you out of a job mid-shift unless something's already burning down, and nothing good ever starts with your supervisor walking toward you wearing that expression. I was elbow deep inside a reach stacker's hydraulic system at Pier J, hands slick with grease, sweat soaking through my third shirt of the day, when I noticed Paul cutting across the yard toward me. It was the kind of stride that tells you somebody's about to have a very complicated afternoon. A woman I didn't recognize walked a few steps behind him, business casual, lanyard that practically screamed compliance, eyes scanning the yard like she was cataloging every face, every movement, every possible issue. I know that energy from 100 yards away. It was 2:40 p.m. on a Thursday. I remember because I just checked my phone to see how long until break and instead found 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Turned out it was Terminal Security's office line trying to reach me before they sent Paul. Never a good sign. My classification review was supposed to close out next month, and whatever this was, the timing couldn't have been worse. Paul stopped about 10 feet from me. The woman hung back, watching me like I owed her money, and she was already calculating interest. Around us the yard noise, forklifts beeping, cranes humming, radios crackling from every direction, suddenly felt louder than usual. King, leave the tools. You need to come with us. I wiped my hands on a rag that had long since stopped being useful. What's going on? Security office. Now. I'd started as a yard jockey and worked my way up to equipment tech. I maintained the RTGs, the reach stackers, the chassis handlers, everything that keeps more cargo moving than most people ever realize. I'd never been called into security for anything serious. Never had a complaint. Never missed a safety check. This wasn't routine, whatever it was. 2 weeks earlier, I diagnosed a fault in an RTG that 3 other techs had missed, traced it back to a corroded relay buried behind a panel nobody checks because the manual says it's maintenance-free. Paul had put me in for accommodation. That's the kind of employee who was now being escorted to security like a suspect. The walk across the yard felt longer than it should have. Longshoremen I'd known for years watched us pass. Guzman from the crane crew, Eddie who ran graveyard, Rayon from security who I played poker with twice a month. No one said anything, but I could feel the questions hanging in the air. The woman walked behind me like she was escorting a prisoner. My boots echoed against the concrete. Somewhere behind us, a container ship's horn blasted twice. The security building was cold. They led me into a windowless conference room. A folder sat on the table with my employee photo clipped to the front, my TWWIC number written beneath it in black marker. Paul sat across from me. The woman took the seat at the head of the table and finally introduced herself. Mr. King, I'm Deepa Patel, investigator with Terminal Security. Her voice was calm, steady. She reminded me of that hitman in Collateral, the one who treats everything like it's just business, detached, professional, dangerous in a way that doesn't require raising your voice. We have some questions about your TWWIC card. My TWWIC? I've got it right here. I reached for my wallet. We know you have one. That's not the issue. She opened the folder. The issue is that a credential registered to your name was used to sponsor visitor access at a restricted pier yesterday at 11:43 a.m. You weren't scheduled there. You weren't on any work order, and you never filed a visitor authorization. Something twisted hard in my gut. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any visitor access. She slid a photograph across the table, grainy security footage but clear enough. A woman walking through a gate checkpoint with a temporary badge clipped to her jacket. Dark hair, expensive sunglasses, a face I'd been trying not to think about for 3 weeks. Kelsey, my ex-girlfriend, the woman I'd blocked everywhere after she humiliated me at a company event. The woman who apparently decided that wasn't enough and escalated to actual crimes. Do you recognize this woman? My brain struggled to process something so stupid, so reckless, so completely insane that it resisted accepting it was real. Mr. King. Yeah, that's my ex-girlfriend. Ms. Patel's pen paused mid-note. Your ex-girlfriend used your credentials to gain visitor access to a secure port facility. I didn't give her permission to do that. I didn't ask whether you gave her permission. I'm telling you what happened. She pulled out another photo. Kelsey wasn't alone. A tall guy stood beside her. Slick haircut, expensive suit, holding his phone up like he was recording. Who's the man? No idea. I've never seen him before. She used your credential number to obtain a visitor badge, brought an unauthorized individual inside with her, and they spent close to an hour in a restricted zone. Do you understand how serious that is? I understood. Unauthorized access violations aren't parking tickets. We're talking criminal charges, facility prosecution, the kind of thing that ends careers and drags you into court. I didn't know she had my card. Then how did she get it? And that's when it hit me that whatever answer I gave would either clear me completely or bury me for good. 3 weeks earlier, everything had still felt normal. Kelsey and I had been together about a year and a half. We met at a friend's birthday in San Pedro. She worked for some boutique PR firm in LA. She was pretty, ambitious, and had this way of making you feel like you were the most interesting person in the room. At least that's how it started. My classification review was 2 months out, so I was grinding, picking up extra hours, staying clean, doing everything right. Meanwhile, she kept telling me I wasn't present enough in her life. I'm not going to pretend I didn't see the red flags. I saw them. I just told myself they were yellow, maybe orange at worst. Everyone has quirks. Everyone has baggage. I convinced myself I was being mature by overlooking the small stuff. She'd get strange about my job sometimes. Not openly critical, just little comments that lodged in your brain like splinters. I'd come home smelling like diesel, and she'd wrinkle her nose and ask if I could shower before sitting on the couch. When she introduced me to her work friends, she'd say I was in logistics instead of saying I fixed heavy equipment at the port. One time she joked I should tell people I worked in supply chain management because it sounded more serious. I laughed it off. Thought she was trying to help. The thing that finally blew everything up happened at an awards dinner her company organized. Some hotel ballroom in Marina del Rey. Chandeliers the size of my truck. Round tables set with too many forks. People in expensive clothes congratulating each other for campaigns nobody outside that room had ever heard of. Kelsey insisted I go. Said it would be good for me to see her world. Said her boss would be there and it mattered for her career. I should have said no. I was exhausted. I'd worked a double the day before fixing a reach stacker that kept stalling mid-lift. There was still grease under my nails I couldn't scrub out. But she'd been on me about not showing up for her, so I went. The ballroom was packed. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a catalog. I felt like an extra in a movie about people who matter, drifting in the background while the main characters talked. Her friends were there. The whole group. Megan, who worked at the same PR firm and never remembered my name. Julia, who sold something related to wellness and always sounded like she was pitching a product. And this guy Trent, who apparently owned a startup involving AI and real estate. He had that specific kind of confidence some rich people carry, not earned, just assumed. They were standing near the drink station, and when Kelsey and I walked up, the energy shifted. Megan gave me a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Julia glanced at my shoes, then looked away. Trent didn't even pretend to acknowledge me. He was in the middle of telling a story about a property deal in Venice Beach, and everyone was nodding like he'd just discovered gravity. The guy had soft hands and a watch that probably cost more than everything I owned. I caught him checking his reflection in his glass twice. There he is, Kelsey said, looping her arm through mine. My hard-working man. What do you do again? Trent asked. He wanted me to say it out loud. Equipment tech at the port. Long Beach. The port. Julia tilted her head like I'd said something confusing. Like shipping containers? Yeah. I maintain the cranes and yard equipment. Oh. She gave me a polite fake smile. That's hands-on. And just like that, the conversation moved on without me. Real estate prices. Influencer drama. Some restaurant in Silver Lake with a 3-month wait list. I stood there holding my drink, not adding anything, feeling like a prop in someone else's story. The chandeliers stopped looking impressive and started feeling suffocating. Then Megan made a comment about engagement rings, how her boyfriend was apparently shopping in Beverly Hills, and how she expected something substantial because anything less would be embarrassing. "What about you, Kels?" Julia grinned, leaning in. "Any hints from your guy?" Kelsey laughed. "It wasn't kind. Please. You think a doc guy can afford what I'm looking for?" The entire circle burst out laughing. Trent actually snorted into his drink. Megan covered her mouth like it was too funny. And Kelsey, my girlfriend, the woman I'd spent 18 months building something with, just smiled. She didn't correct herself. Didn't say she was joking. She let it sit there like it was obvious and true. "I mean, don't get me wrong, he's sweet," she went on, playing to the crowd. "But let's be realistic. I'm not walking around with some half-carat thing from Costco. A girl has standards." More laughter. Then she patted my arm like I was a golden retriever who'd done a trick. She didn't even look at me. I set my glass down on the nearest table. I didn't argue, didn't make a scene. I just turned and walked toward the exit. I heard her call my name once, but she didn't come after me. I sat in my truck in the hotel parking garage for 20 minutes before I finally drove home. I didn't call her. I didn't text. I just drove. When I got back to my place, I started gathering up the things she'd left behind. Clothes in the closet, a makeup bag in the bathroom, books she never actually read stacked on my nightstand. It took about an hour because somehow she had managed to spread pieces of herself into every room of my apartment. About 2 hours after I left the hotel, Kelsey showed up. She still had the door code. She let herself in while I was in the shower and immediately started doing what she always did when she felt a fight coming on. Acting like nothing had happened, straightening things up, moving stuff around, trying to smooth it all over by pretending it was normal. I came out, told her we were done, and told her to grab her things and leave. She cried. She argued. She said I was overreacting. I wasn't interested in debating it. I stood in the kitchen doorway and waited while she packed a bag. She moved back and forth between rooms, collecting her stuff. At one point she lingered in the kitchen for about a minute, said she was looking for her phone charger. I was exhausted, running on no sleep and a lot of anger, and I wasn't watching her like she was going through airport security. I heard a drawer slide open, the junk drawer, the one where I kept old cards, spare keys, random paperwork. She said she was grabbing a hair tie. I was standing in the bedroom doorway with my arms crossed, just wanting her gone. I didn't go check. She finally left around 1 a.m. I changed the door code first thing the next morning. What I didn't realize until weeks later was that during that minute in the kitchen she'd found my old TWWIC card in that junk drawer. The one I'd replaced a few months earlier after renewing. I'd kept it because I'm the kind of person who doesn't throw things away until I'm absolutely certain I won't need them. My dad was the same way. Receipts from 2003 old warranties replaced cards just in case. She must have snapped a picture of it or written down the credential number. Either way, she got what she needed, and I had no idea. Every day that credential number was compromised without me knowing was a day closer to my classification review going up in flames. After that night, she came back the next morning and pounded on the door for 10 minutes. The new code stopped her. She left a voicemail from a friend's phone calling me childish, dramatic, incapable of taking a joke. I didn't respond. 2 days later, she texted from another number asking me to Venmo her $85 for her half of the anniversary dinner from 3 months earlier. A dinner I'd paid for in full at a restaurant she chose. I didn't respond to that either. What I didn't factor in was that Kelsey wasn't the type to accept being ignored. She was the type to escalate, and she was already holding the key to do it. 43 minutes inside a restricted zone. That's all it takes to end 2 careers. The thing about my old TWWIC card was that it wasn't expired yet. I'd renewed early. The new card arrived a few weeks before the old one's expiration date. That overlap is standard, so you're never without valid credentials. But until the expiration date hit, the old card's credential number still scanned as active in the system. I just wasn't carrying it anymore because the new one was in my wallet. I should have surrendered the old card or cut it up. That's protocol. Instead, I tossed it in the junk drawer and forgot about it because honestly, Who expects their ex-girlfriend to photograph a port security credential? Here's what happened at the restricted pier. Kelsey pulled into the visitor lane at a gate checkpoint with some guy in her passenger seat. She told the guard she had a scheduled escort visit. She gave my name and credential number as the sponsoring employee. She'd memorized it from the photo she took in my kitchen that night. She handed over her driver's license for the temporary badge and said I was already inside waiting for her at Pier J. That morning the gate was chaos. A truck had thrown a code 2 lanes over and blocked traffic. Radios were blaring dispatch calls. A supervisor was sprinting across the checkpoint. Trucks were backed up 20 deep. Drivers were leaning on their horns. Standard procedure is to call the sponsor, verify they've filed a visitor authorization, confirm they're on site. The guard entered my credential number, saw it matched an active employee, but he was already juggling 3 problems, so he skipped the verification call. He printed her visitor badge, logged the entry under my name as sponsor, and waved her through. It happens more than it should when you're understaffed and the line keeps growing. Sometimes someone skips a step just to keep traffic moving. A human mistake, and Kelsey walked right through it. She brought a stranger into a restricted facility. They were instructed to wait near the gate office for their sponsor, but instead they grabbed a couple of high-visibility vests off a rack by the entrance and wandered into the yard. 2 people in vests don't stand out when everyone's moving fast. They spent close to an hour filming container yards that handle cargo from every corner of the planet. Kelsey's lawyer later turned the footage over during discovery, trying to negotiate a better deal for his client. He filmed the yard operations, the crane movements, the container stacks, capturing it all like it was some kind of nature documentary. Smooth pans, dramatic angles, a voiceover about the hidden backbone of American commerce. He treated a secure facility like it was his own private film set. At one point he even posed Kelsey in front of a gantry crane like it was a fashion shoot. But the system always catches up. The gate log showed my credential number listed as the visit sponsor, except I had never filed a visitor authorization and I wasn't even assigned to that pier that day. When that mismatch showed up in the daily review, it raised a flag. When they pulled the footage and saw 2 people in designer clothes strolling through a secure area like they were scouting locations, it triggered a lot more than a flag. Miss Patel leaned back in her chair. So she had access to your apartment. She knew where you kept the old card. And she used it 3 weeks after you ended the relationship. That's what I'm telling you. You understand how that looks? Yeah, I said, feeling my jaw tighten. I understand how it looks. But I'm telling you what happened. I didn't help her. I didn't know she took a photo of it. Miss Patel studied me for a long moment. Her pen tapped against the folder 3 times. Then she closed it. We're going to need you to come back in tomorrow. Don't leave town. I walked out of that building knowing one thing for sure. My career was hanging on whether a stranger believed me over my ex-girlfriend. Administrative leave sounds like a break until you realize you're the one under investigation. The process dragged into the next week. I was officially put on leave, which meant I sat at home staring at the walls while Miss Patel and her team dissected every detail of my life. Phone records, access logs, every message I'd exchanged with Kelsey in the past 6 months. My classification review was frozen. I kept waking up at 4:30 a.m. out of habit, getting halfway dressed before remembering there was nowhere to go. By day 3, I was reorganizing my toolbox in the garage just to keep my hands busy. By day 5, I'd rebuilt the garbage disposal, fixed a slow drain in the bathroom, and recaulked every window in the apartment. My neighbor knocked and asked if I was renovating. I told him I was losing my mind. He laughed. I wasn't joking. Paul called once to check in. Said the union was monitoring things, but couldn't do much until the facts were sorted out. Told me to sit tight and stay clean. That was the extent of the advice. When I stopped by to grab a tool I'd left in my locker, someone had written security risk across the door in black marker. Big letters. Impossible to miss. Rayon saw it at the same time I did. He didn't say anything, just called maintenance and had it painted over within an hour. My friend Javi showed up at my apartment on the second night even though I told him not to. He worked yard operations, drove tractors, knew everyone and everything happening on the docks. So let me get this straight, he said, stretched out on my couch eating my chips. Your ex pulled a catch me if you can on terminal security. Just walked right in with a badge that wasn't even hers. Pretty much. That's unhinged. He shook his head. What are you going to do? Tell the truth. Hope they believe me. You think they're going to believe you? I didn't answer because I honestly didn't know. From the outside it looked bad. Ex-girlfriend uses my credentials right after a very public breakup. Could look like revenge on her part. Could also look like I helped her get in and now I was trying to cover myself. Javi studied my face. Look man, Patel's thorough, but she's fair. If you didn't do anything wrong, she'll figure it out. Since when do you know so much about investigators? Since my cousin got caught stealing copper wire off a job site and I watched the whole thing go down, he said, grabbing another handful of chips. Different ending for him, but same vibe. I laughed for the first time in days. Then he got serious. For real though, I've got your back. Whatever you need. I don't think perjury helps my case. Fine. Offer still stands. I can lie about smaller stuff if that helps. Like I can say you're a great guy. That's only a medium lie. He pulled out his phone. Also, I looked up the guy she brought in. His name's Brandon Kessler. Runs a channel called Supply Side Stories. Lists his sponsors right in his bio. Some logistics software company. Why does that matter? Because when that company finds out their brand ambassador got caught inside a restricted facility using stolen credentials, they're going to drop him fast. And Patel might want to know exactly who Kelsey was trying to impress. He showed me Kessler's channel. About 40,000 subscribers. A voice like a TED Talk speaker who'd binge-watched too many Netflix documentaries. His content was all about disrupting supply chain transparency and pulling back the curtain on global trade. Every thumbnail had him standing in front of shipping containers, looking serious. The comments were full of people calling him a visionary. I felt like throwing my phone into the ocean. By Wednesday, I had replayed every possible outcome in my head. Best case, they believed me. I kept my job and Kelsey dealt with the consequences of what she'd done. Worst case, they didn't believe me. My port access would be revoked for good, and my career would be finished before I even turned 30. They called me back in 3 more times that week, going over access logs again, combing through phone records, dissecting every piece of the timeline like they were trying to find a crack. Miss Patel brought me in on Thursday for the final sit-down. Same conference room. Same cold air conditioning that made the place feel more like an interrogation box than an office. This time there was an older guy in the corner I hadn't seen before, gray hair, quietly taking notes on a legal pad. We've completed our preliminary review, Ms. Patel said. We found no evidence you were aware of or complicit in the unauthorized access. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until it came out. However, she added, that word just hung there. Your negligence in securing your credential created the opportunity for this breach. The old card should have been surrendered or destroyed per protocol. I swallowed. So what does that mean for me? Formal reprimand. Mandatory retraining on credential security. 6-month probationary period. One more incident and your credential privileges are revoked. She paused. And unofficially, you're lucky you're good at your job and Paul went to bat for you. I nodded. It wasn't great, but it wasn't the end. What about her? Something shifted in her eyes. She's facing serious charges. Unauthorized facility access. Facilitating unauthorized entry of an unvetted individual. Recording in a restricted zone. The individual she brought, Brandon Kessler, is facing the same charges. The case has been referred for prosecution. Good. Ms. Patel lifted an eyebrow slightly. That sounded personal. It is personal. She walked into my workplace using my stolen credentials to film content for some guy's channel. Javi told me later I probably should have kept that part to myself. He was probably right. Some people can't accept when the game's over. They just keep playing until someone calls security. I went back to work the following Monday. My retraining deadline was 3 weeks out. Every shift felt like a test I couldn't afford to fail. Javi found me at lunch, practically buzzing. Okay, so I heard something. Rayon said Patel told the gate guys to flag Kelsey's plates and notify her immediately if she shows up anywhere near the facility. That seems thorough. That's not thorough. That's personal. His grin widened. I respect it. 3 days later, I was running diagnostics on an RTG crane at the north end of the yard when my radio crackled. King, you copy? It was Javi. He wasn't supposed to be on the maintenance channel. Why are you on maintenance frequency? South Gate. Right now. You're going to want to see this. I shouldn't have gone. It wasn't my problem anymore. The smart move would have been to stay put, finish my checklist, let the system handle whatever it was. But I'm not always smart, and some things you feel like you need to see with your own eyes. I drove a yard vehicle over toward the gate and parked behind a stack of containers where I could watch without being obvious. Javi was already there, leaning casually against a fence post, pretending to review something on his clipboard. Kelsey's car, her white BMW she loved so much, was stopped at the checkpoint. Later, I pieced together that she'd convinced some new guy she was seeing that she had connections at the port and could get them a tour. Whether she genuinely believed she could talk her way back in or just wanted to prove she still could, I don't know. But she pulled up like nothing had ever happened. I could see her through the windshield talking to the guard. Even from 50 yards away, I recognized the tone she was using. Sweet, but sharp around the edges. The voice she used on customer service reps when she expected them to bend. The guard wasn't buying it. He was on his radio, face completely neutral, calling something in. Kelsey kept talking, hands moving, trying to sell it. The guy in the passenger seat, definitely not Kessler this time, looked like he wanted the ground to open up and swallow him. Then a terminal security SUV rolled up. Miss Patel stepped out, calm as ever. Same steady posture. Same unhurried movements, like she wasn't in a rush because she didn't need to be. She walked to Kelsey's window with a folder in her hand. I couldn't hear what she said, but I saw the shift instantly. Kelsey's posture snapped from confident to defensive in about 2 seconds. She started arguing, explaining, justifying. Miss Patel didn't match her energy. She just handed the folder through the window and stepped back. Kelsey tossed it onto the dashboard. Even from where I stood, I could see her face flushing red. She was yelling now, loud enough that I could hear the pitch even if I couldn't make out the words. The guard edged closer to the car, one hand near his radio. A truck driver waiting in line leaned halfway out his window, openly staring. Then Kelsey made her move. She opened her door and stepped out of the car, like getting physically closer would somehow change the situation. 2 things happened almost at once. The guard stepped forward, hand raised, issuing a clear verbal warning. And Ms. Patel said something short and quiet that froze Kelsey mid-step. I learned later it was something along the lines of, "Take one more step and you'll be detained." Kelsey got back into the car. She sat there gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles looked white even from a distance. The guy in the passenger seat was gesturing toward the exit like he wanted out of there immediately. She didn't look at him. She just stared straight ahead. By then a small crowd had formed. 3 guys from the morning crew, a couple of truckers waiting in line, and Rayon off to the side pretending to check something on his tablet while clearly watching every second of it. Kelsey finally threw the car in reverse, tires screeching as she backed up, spun the wheel and sped off. One of the truckers actually slow-clapped. Ramon glanced up from his tablet and said the morning crew was going to be talking about this for weeks. Javi showed up next to me, grinning like he'd just watched a perfect ending. That was beautiful. Yeah. He studied my face. You okay? I started walking back toward the yard vehicle. Let's get back to work. He grabbed my arm. Hold up. You're not about to go do something dumb, right? Like what? Like trying to get better footage or talking to the gate guys or anything that puts you back on Patel's radar. Jared, you already won. She just got served in front of half the morning shift. Her new guy looked like he was calculating the fastest way to ghost her. Stay in your lane. He was right. I knew he was right. The fallout hit fast after that. The new guy disappeared within 3 days. Her firm put her on administrative leave, which everyone knows means clean out your desk quietly. 2 clients dropped her the next day. She was formally terminated that Monday. I heard that two of her biggest accounts, a skincare brand and some wellness retreat company, released statements distancing themselves before her firm even made it public. In PR, reputation is the product. Once that's gone, there's nothing left to sell. 17 months building that career, gone in 17 days. The next few weeks were quiet. I kept my head down, did my job, passed my retraining with no issues, and tried to move like everything was normal. Then a letter showed up. It was from Kelsey's defense attorney, her public defender based on the case number. Polite tone. Said they were exploring all avenues for their client's defense and wanted to discuss my recollection of events. Specifically, they asked whether I'd be willing to provide a statement about the nature of shared access and understandings between Kelsey and me during our relationship. Shared access and understandings. Lawyer language for can you suggest you maybe kind of gave her permission. I read it twice. Nothing outright asked me to lie, but the implication was obvious. They wanted me to blur the edges, say something vague enough to spin into implied consent. I didn't respond. A week later, she was waiting in the parking lot of my apartment building. Not at my door. She didn't have the new code. She was sitting on the hood of her white BMW when I pulled in after work. "We need to talk," she said as I stepped out of my truck. "No, we don't. Jared, please. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I kept walking toward the entrance. "I'm facing charges." Her voice cracked. "Serious charges." I stopped but didn't turn around right away. "I made a mistake. A stupid, impulsive mistake. But you can help. You can tell them it was a misunderstanding. That I had your permission." I faced her then. "You want me to lie under oath. I want you to help me. I want you to remember that we spent 18 months together. That has to mean something. You called me a doc guy in front of your friends like I was a punchline. You broke into my apartment after I ended things. You stole my credentials. Brought a stranger into a restricted facility. And now you want me to lie so you don't have to deal with what you did. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was insecure and stupid and I didn't appreciate what you... I don't care." She flinched. "I really don't. Not anymore. You made your choices. Every single one." She stared at me for a long moment, and something in her expression hardened. "You're going to regret this." "I really don't think I am." I walked inside. The case dragged on longer than I expected. Continuances, motions, rescheduled dates. The slow grind that makes you understand why people say the legal system moves at its own pace. Nearly 4 months passed from the day of the breach before the hearing that actually mattered. I was asked to provide a witness statement for the prosecution. The DA's office wanted me to establish the timeline and confirm I hadn't authorized the access. My role was simple. Tell the truth. Answer the questions. Don't offer anything extra. I was halfway through my probationary period. Whatever happened in that courtroom would decide whether I walked away clean. I showed up early and sat in the hallway outside the courtroom. Downtown courthouse. Marble floors. High ceilings. Metal detectors at the entrance. The whole routine. Kelsey was there too, sitting on a bench at the other end with her attorney, flipping through paperwork. She looked worse than the last time I'd seen her. Tired. Thinner. Her lawyer eventually got up and headed toward the restroom. She stayed seated. Then she noticed the bailiff step away from the courtroom door to talk to someone. The hallway cleared for a moment. She stood up and walked straight toward me, clutching a sheet of paper. Her other hand held her phone down by her side. Screen turned toward me. "I need you to look at something." She stopped too close, blocking my path to the courtroom. She had timed it. "Back up, Kelsey. Just read it. It's not saying you gave me permission. It's just saying you don't object to a reduced charge. That's it." I noticed the angle of her phone right away. She wanted me on camera. Wanted me to say something she could use. "Put the phone away." Her expression flickered, just for a second. "Caught. I'm not recording. Put it away or I'm getting the bafe." She lowered the phone, but she didn't step back. "I know you're not heartless," she said, her voice dropping. "Please just back up," I told her. "Now." She hesitated, just long enough to confirm exactly what she was doing. It's not permission, she rushed. It's just you not objecting to a reduced charge. I'm not signing anything, I said. And I'm not giving you a quote you can clip. Her face tightened. The mask slipped. The bailiff noticed her standing in my space and started walking toward us. Ma'am, he said, his voice flat. Return to your seat now. She looked at me like she was searching for a crack, some small weakness she could wedge herself into. Then she turned and walked back before she dug herself in any deeper. Her lawyer was coming down the hallway, saw what had just happened, and his face fell. We need to go sit down, Kelsey, he said quietly. She went back to her bench without another word. About 20 minutes later, I was called in. Kelsey sat at the defense table staring straight ahead. She didn't look at me once while I was on the stand. I told the truth, just the facts, nothing extra. Answered the questions, confirmed the timeline, explained the credential situation, and stepped down. The whole thing took maybe half an hour. In the end, Kelsey pleaded to lesser charges, 2 years probation, community service, a permanent trespass ban from Port of Long Beach terminals and associated properties, plus a probation condition to stay away from any port facility, restitution payments that would follow her for years, and a conviction on her record that would show up on every background check for the foreseeable future. Brandon Kessler took a similar deal. His sponsors dropped him the day the charges were filed. His channel got nuked not by the platform. He deleted it himself after the comment section turned into a roast. Somebody had screenshotted the charges and posted them under every video. 40,000 subscribers, gone overnight. Turns out pulling back the curtain on global trade hits different when you did it with stolen credentials. Last I heard, he was working at his uncle's car wash in Riverside. Javi met me outside the courthouse with tacos from a truck he swore was the best in Long Beach. We sat in his truck in the parking lot, eating and not talking about anything important. You good? He asked eventually. Yeah, that was a lot. It was. But it's done now. He handed me another taco. We ate in silence for a while, then drove back toward Long Beach. The port lights were coming on in the distance, cranes silhouetted against the orange sky. Somewhere out there, containers were moving, ships were loading, and the whole machine kept running. My job was to keep it running. Guys, we are so close to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 1,000 mark.